Doesn't matter. This woman's 18-month-old son was taken from her. So, Kirsten Nielsen, your example is horseshit. That a parent who breaks into a house is going to lose custody of their children. And how fucking dare you make that kind of an analogy? These are not lawbreakers. And it's too bad, Kirsten Nielsen, that you don't understand U.S. involvement in destabilizing and corrupting and fucking up all of Central America over the past century. Miriam, in a declaration accompanying the A.C.L.U. suit, said, quote, "The immigration officers made me walk out with my son to a government vehicle and place my son in a car seat in the vehicle. My son was crying as I put him in the seat. I did not even have a chance to comfort my son because the officers slammed the door shut as soon as he was in his seat." End quote. Here's another example. Let's call her Ms. G, a Mexican in the A.C.L.U. suit. She went to an official border crossing point and requested asylum with her 4-year-old son and her 6-year-old daughter who happened to be blind. None of them had broken American law, and yet both kids were taken from the mother. So Kirsten Nielsen, go fuck yourself. Either figure out, come up with a different analogy, but don't use the lawbreaker bit. These are not lawbreakers. You, Kirsten Nielsen, you're breaking the law. Oh, it's a moral law, which means nobody's going to hold you accountable. Ms. G, the Mexican woman, wrote in her declaration, quote, "I have not seen my children for 1.5 months. I worry about them constantly, and I don't know when I will see them." End quote. But Christoph writes, granted, this does not happen to all who present themselves at the border and do not cross illegally, but it does seem arbitrary. Whose kid gets snatched? But even for those parents who commit a misdemeanor by illegally entering the U.S. because they want to protect their children from Central American gangs, a misdemeanor, the response of the United States seems to be, we're going to kidnap your children. Is this who we are? It is who we are. Is this who we want to be? Is this who we want to be? I don't want to be this. I don't want to live in a country that does this. Do you? Christoph says, if you or I commit a misdemeanor, we might lose our kids for a few days while we're in jail, and then we get them back. But border crossers serve a few days in jail for illegal entry, and after emerging from custody, they still don't get their kids back, said Lee Gallant, an A.C.L.U. lawyer. In one case, he said, it's been 8 months, and the child still has not been returned. And it doesn't make any difference about how our immigration policies are chaotic. That's a result over the years of these worthless Congresses, House and Senate. These incompetent fuckers who are in Congress, who are in the Senate and the House, strictly to do the bidding of the people who gave them the most money and to enrich themselves. They don't give a fuck about children. Trying to find equivalency here, and I don't fault him for it. Christoph writes, some immigrants bring small children with them and claim to be the parent in hopes that this will spare them from detention. Yet that should not be an excuse for brutalizing children by ripping them away from their parents. Christoph writes, I was at times ferociously critical of Barack Obama's handling of Central American refugees, but past administrations managed these difficult trade-offs without gratuitously embracing cruelty. One fruitful step that Obama tried to put in place was to work with the governments of these countries that have this horrible gang violence. Work with them to try to get it to stop, which is not that simple. I mean, when you send your Marines in at the beginning of the 20th century to fucking destroy the social fabric of these countries, to be replaced with a military dictatorship so your fucking corporations back in America can operate with no impediments. And this goes on for generation after generation after generation. Sitting down with the governments of Honduras, El Salvador, what are the other ones? I can't think today, Kathy. Sitting down with the governments of these countries, trying to work out something to stop the violence. It's trying to plug a hole in the dam when the dam is about to burst. Guatemala, that was what I'm thinking about, because they seem to be the worst. And remember what we did was it Guatemala? In 1953, we removed the president of that country after he was elected, President Arbenz. Because Arbenz had the audacity to insist that the banana plantations or the coffee plantations or whatever in his country should be the property of people in his country. What a fucking radical idea, huh? And that the land should be the property of the people who live there. So we took care of that. White House Chief of Staff John Kelly, Christoph writes, hails family separation. Oh, Kelly loves it. This filthy bastard loves it. He calls it a, quote, tough deterrent, end quote. A tough deterrent. Let's put Mr. Kelly and his family in a situation where his children might be murdered, where his wife might be raped and murdered, where he might be eviscerated. And he finds out that he can run north, and then let John Kelly run north and see how he feels when he gets there and they take his children from him. I hate these fucking people. I swear to you I do. And Kelly said, quote, the children will be taken care of, put into foster care or whatever, end quote. That's what he said. Put into foster care or whatever. What the fuck is whatever? Child sex slaves? What the fuck is whatever, Mr. Kelly? You were a general? You commanded troops? Put into foster care or whatever. Jesus Christ. Christoph closes by asking a question. He says, so what's next, Mr. President? Minefields at the border? That would be an effective deterrent. Or East German-style marksmen and watchtowers to shoot those who cross? Remember that? That was not so long ago. I remember that. The video of the Stasi, well, the Stasi was the secret police, but the East German soldiers at that Wall, East Berlin, shooting people dead who are trying to flee. Christoph closes with these two sentences. We as a nation should protect our borders. We must even more assiduously protect our soul. But you know what subgroup in this country is really, truly, deeply in favor of this brutal shit at the border? The Caucasian Christian evangelicals. Yeah. Okay, let's take a break. When we come back, and now I realize this is Thursday night, but there is a secondary threat in this country. Primary threat is fascism. There's a secondary threat that is in some ways worse than fascism because it uses fascism and religion. That's a lethal combination.